Right, this next piece was sent in by one of our members, and it's an interesting pointer perhaps of what they're up to and their name changes. And it's about Pfizer, or is it Pfizer, changing the name of their vax to Comirnaty in an attempt to get FDA approval. Now, there has been much negative press about this change, but oddly, most of it has been about the strange name. And when I see strange words, I get itchy, and I went to the gematria lookups, and here are the results. Words with the same Hebrew gematria values as Comirnaty. Ancient Babylon. Decode my birth. The end of days. Claims do not matter. Adonai, my Lord is Yahweh. You can keep it. Shava in Hebrew means to reveal, to show, to declare. Tazapkiel, an archangel whose name means God's knowledge, and he is the chief of the order of thrones and one of the 9 angels, or is it angels, that supposedly rule heaven. Exhausted. Osiris Rex. Rex means king and is the name of a NASA spacecraft set to study a near-Earth asteroid named Bennu. Well, I never. Bennu is an ancient Egyptian god linked with the sun, creation and rebirth. And the Bennu bird is the inspiration for the phoenix myth. The Phoenicians, or phony CIAians, are at it again, it seems. Balthazar is another one that matches up with Comirnaty, the name of the dark magi who brings myrrh to the baby Jesus in the nativity myth, and he is depicted as having dark skin in historical paintings, which means he was part of Lucifer's jet black race brought here to end the white race. And the name also means Bel. Bel protects the king. In Hebrew, Bel is another name for Baal and also Marduk. Albus Dumbledore is another match, the headmaster of the wizard magic school in Harry Potter, and he is the leader of the Order of the Phoenix. Are you connecting the dots here? 3 currencies, US dollar, yen and euro. Decode Lebensborn program, and Lebensborn means fountain of life, and the Lebensborn project was started by Heinrich Himmler back in 1935. In the same year, the Nuremberg laws outlawed marriage between Jews and others deemed inferior. But does anyone ask if the Nuremberg trials were real or just theatre? Now, the purpose of the Lebensborn program was to supply young girls who were racially pure to have children who were given up for adoption to the SS, where they were sacrificed. God is the Antichrist. Borghese family, the name of a princely family of Italian nobility and papal background. And in the 13th century they rose to power as magistrates, ambassadors and public officials. In the 16th century the Pope was like a king and could give the papal title to anyone he wished, and they moved to Rome in the 16th century and became very wealthy and famous thanks to Pope Paul V. Lord of Baux, B-A-U-X. The House of Baux is a French nobility family thought to have been extinct after 1426. Now they just changed the name. And their fame might have been because they were rumoured to have been descendants of Balthazar, the dark-skinned Magi. Now, the Lord of Bow was phased out into the Anjou line, and they are one of the 3 lions that is said to represent England, except all 3 are French. And Bow was also part of the House of Orange. More words that fit in with commonality. Phallic symbol, which is Osiris again. Canis lupus, and there is a constellation named Lupus, and it takes up 333.683 degrees of the southern sky and is not viewable in the northern hemisphere above 35 degrees latitude. Now, the ancient Greeks knew it as therium, a wild animal, and the Romans called it bestia, the beast, or the cat. Just saying. A Latin translation of Ptolemy's work finally identified it as a wolf. Now, what is odd is because the only place this constellation is visible in Greece is at the southernmost tip of the island of Crete, and yet this constellation was found by Greek astronomer Hipparchus in the 3rd century BC. Now, there are only 2 named stars in the constellation. The first is named Men and is said to mean the South Gate, Antarctica. And the second is named Kek-U-An and means imperial gods. Now, Kek is also an ancient Egyptian god of primordial darkness. Final 2, he said there are many more, but I had to include these last 2: ascending out of Hades and mixing of species. We said we'd cover the IRS again, and this was written by Anna Von Reitz and is called Dealing with the IRS and Other Public Debt Collectors. And it says the IRS can try to misaddress Americans, and if we are stupid, they can still succeed. And the fundamental question is, if you have properly instructed the bank and used the proper endorsements on all checks, do you have any federal income, yes or no? And if you've done your homework, unless you are a direct federal employee, you probably don't have any federal income to report, because you have properly denominated all Federal Reserve notes as lawful money, and federal script, such as the Federal Reserve notes, which is owned and taxed by them, is not lawful money. None of it went into your account because you exercised your right to denominate it as lawful money. So why are you being harassed about purported federal income? And she says, unless you get a funny money green and orange check from Uncle Sam that is based on actual federal income and defined as profit separated from capital, you don't have any federal income to tax. If you're not operating as a federal citizen, meaning a US citizen of the British territorial government, or a municipal citizen of the United States, and you aren't engaged in any federally regulated activity, you don't have federal income. Read the words, people. You have to have federal income before you can owe a federal income tax, and most of us have no federal income. Most of us are not knowingly or willingly functioning as US citizens as if we were born in and living in Puerto Rico, nor as citizens of the United States as if we were born in Washington, D.C. and are literally outside of any jurisdiction related to the federal government subcontractors at all. So teach people to set up their bank accounts appropriately and use the proper process to denominate their funds, and that is the end of any power of the IRS over them or their accounts. The same applies to American-owned and operated businesses of common right. Unless you are actively involved in some federally regulated activity such as the manufacture, sale or transport of alcohol, tobacco or firearms across state lines, or some activity such as operating a concession on a military base, you don't have any federal income to report as a business either. If you are a so-called professional and have a license to treat federal employees, consider what portion of your business derives from federal employees. Do you need to be licensed as a medical doctor, for example, or can you just get along fine as a private physician? If you are a lawyer, how many of your customers are actually and factually federal citizens of any stripe? If they aren't federal employees or dependents, you can't represent them in a court of special admiralty, and you have no reason to operate as a bar attorney. You can get along just fine as a counsellor of law and help people rebuff inappropriate and fraudulent and illegal charges being brought against them without remedy by unscrupulous prosecutors. You deal with this by properly identifying yourself as an American, the declaration and recording process, and the claiming of the assumed name or names used to misaddress you, and your business names too. That's all the capital letters. The certificate of assumed name can be used for any name that you do business under or are presumed to do business under, and can be claimed in exactly the same way. And when I say claim every name you use, I mean business names too. I literally mean every single name that has ever been applied to you or your business persons since the beginning of this world. If you have, for example, a body shop called Big Al's Body Shop, use the certificate of assumed name to claim all possible variations, permutations, orderings, spellings, abbreviations and styles of the name of Big Al's Body Shop, in the same way as you claim all possible variations of your own names. And you can lawfully convert your businesses into American-owned and operated businesses that stand under the public law, just as you can lawfully convert your persons into American persons standing under the public law, simply by claiming them and applying the certificate of assumed name to the business name or names, the same way we claim our individual names. And she said, when you are done, write a letter to the State of State Secretary of State, for example, the State of Illinois Secretary of State, and inform them that you are an American and stand under the public law of Illinois, not the state of Illinois. And your business, Al's Body Shop, is an American business enterprise also standing under the public law. That should be more than sufficient to settle any hash that needs to be settled. If the IRS contacts you scrounging around for purported tithes and estate gift taxes, tell them to pound sand and go and see the State of Illinois Secretary of State. If they present you with any claims, liens or other paper billings, ask them where the exemption voucher is. That should be and is required to be attached to all such correspondence. They cannot legally present you with any bill or notice of lien or anything else without also presenting you with a check voucher to sign and exempt yourself and your business from having to pay. If they do present a bill without attaching the appropriate check voucher for you to accept for value and return for exemption, they are engaged in fraud and are in violation of the Foreign Sovereign Immunity Act, the Fair Trade Act, and the commercial administration laws that apply to them under Federal Title 15. They must present a check for your exemption, and they must show it to you upon demand, and they must provide it upon your request, and then all you have to do is mark the piece of paper. Accept it for value in the amount shown and sign it with your restricted signature using a byline like this: by Felix Robert Mandeleev, and date it, and that's it. The end of difficulties with the IRS for you and your American businesses, and also the end of the IRS levies and garnishments. So this voucher arrives as a letter with an OMB number, but it appears to be a virtually blank piece of paper, and all it has on it is an address block showing your name and social security number without dashes. The AutoTris or QSIP used to access the credit ledger and the return address where you are to send the voucher. And it's the same process for people and for businesses. But you have to demand this letter of credit from the IRS before they will cough it up. And you should return it to them via registered mail, return receipt requested, and keep copies of your returned letter. So now you know in detail and exhaustively how to respond to any false claims against your name, your business, and your political status. You now know how to respond to the IRS, she said. And you are responsible for doing your own homework and correspondence and communicating effectively and following through with your own claims and exercise of your own rights. Now, the point person responsible for recognising your political status and protecting you from inappropriate communications is the State of State Secretary of State. And if they don't do their job and wave the vultures off of you, the Provost Marshal is responsible. And if it really goes too far, the Office of the Inspector General at OIG at sec.gov is responsible. Put the bite on them, she said. These same rules apply to all incorporated debt collectors without exception. And it doesn't matter if it is a credit card corporation, a municipal corporation, a state-of-state corporation, an incorporated court. These are all registered as foreign entities with the State-of-State Secretary of State's office. They all have to present you with a check voucher for exemption at the same time they present a bill. Still have to cough up such a check voucher upon request, still have to accept your exemption, and if they don't, they are wide open to prosecution for fraud, racketeering, impersonation, and they are 100% commercially and individually liable for their activities. And these flunkies of foreign corporations have been stealing you blind and depriving you of your exemptions for generations. We can't even count how much money they already owe you. And once again, send a letter to your bank CEO, registered mail, return receipt requested, instructing them that you are an American and not adopting any federal citizenship. Tell them that all funds in your accounts are to be denominated as lawful money. All funds received or transferred within or exiting your accounts are to be denominated as lawful money. And once again, any cheques or other transfer instruments, money orders, etc., that you deposit must be properly endorsed. Pay to your business by your name, followed by a private copyright symbol, which is a small c with a circle round it, all rights reserved. Redeemed as lawful money, 12 USC 411, and your account number. You could also make it easy on yourself and have a small rubber stamp made with this information on it. Use it to cash all cheques and money orders. This way the money in your account is flagged as lawful funds, not legal fiat. The fiat belongs to the federal corporations, and because it belongs to them, they can seize it, lien it and garnish it. But they cannot mess with lawful money. And this information is to be used only by those who legitimately are Americans and who are not actually in receipt of federal income as a result of federal employment. Good stuff and interesting stuff, but a few points to be made on that. Given anything federal is not directly connected to the government, why are we paying them anyway? You do realise it's not a tax, it's a tribute to the Crown. 100% correct. You are not paying the IRS a tax, you are paying a tribute to the Crown. And all federal entities like the IRS are private foreign corporations that has got nothing to do with Americans or America. Now, my only issue is that Anna went to court herself after being charged with tax evasion and also non-payment of her mortgage. Despite being a judge herself, she'd lost both cases. And this does not augur well for those of us with far less legal knowledge than her. If she failed in court, what chance do we have? And this is why I never advocated for not paying taxes, not paying mortgages, not requiring a driver's license or the birth certificate game. All of them are valid in one form or another, but you are playing a dangerous game pursuing them. Tax filing like this needs to be done in the hundreds of thousands or even millions or more to have a real effect. Otherwise, what they do is they pick you off.